Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel, the Lower Village Soapery. Today we're going to go over the soap experience that we made.
Soap making experience?
Yeah, it's the soap making experience that we did this past week. We did 2 different batches, so we're just going to walk you through it.
So get ready, get set, and make sure you like and subscribe before watching our video. We can't wait to have you, or to show you.
No. Oh, let's just watch it.
Okay.
So we've done a few different molds in the past. In the past, we had a wooden mold which we lined with freezer paper. We've tried a new molds this time around. Is a PVC pipe, and we have 2 options: one that is a hole and one that is split in half. In the past, when we watched YouTube, we saw them not line the PVC pipe. We tried that experiment last time, and it did not work well for us. It was actually a real pain in the bum. So we this time decided to line it with freezer paper.
So just so that you know, when we tested lined and unlined, we tested freezer paper, a plastic mat, nothing, and what else?
It was a cut
in half, and freezer paper was definitely the way to go. Now, if you decide to keep your tube whole, that's totally a legitimate option. Like, it works just as well as a tube that's cut in half. Our tubes are about 1 foot long and held together by clamps that you can see here. I think they're ring clamps or something. So you can get them at a hardware store. Our tubes are also capped. We have done uncapped before as well. And Daniel, was there a reason?
So we found that if you have the whole pipe, the cap works just fine. If you have the split pipe, there will be some leakage at the bottom just because the pipe is slightly smaller in diameter. So you might want to line the bottom if you do use the split pipe, but that's really the only difference.
And where did we get the freezer paper from?
Oh, Home Hardware. Any of your small sort of chain or building stores will have it. I haven't really seen it anywhere else except for maybe the internet.
Yeah, it's not a common. I don't think we've seen it at the grocery store.
No.
So what it is like is similar to wax paper and parchment paper. It's like a combination of both of them. Wax paper on one side and parchment on the other. I'm not sure why the rationale over why freezer paper is better than wax paper, but you definitely put the waxy side on the inside and the parchment side on the tube outer side.
So we lined 4 tubes for this particular soap making project. So one recipe, 1 pound batch, will make 1 tube. So we doubled 2 recipes to make 2 2-pound batches.
As you can see here, we're measuring out our ingredients. We used a scale. You can't see it under this big pot, but we zeroed it each time we added new ingredients. And like Lauren said, we doubled the batch each time.
Make sure you mix your oils first. So usually your recipes will be laid out where the oils are the first things that you see. You're not going to mix any of your scents or colors at this point. This is just oils. And remember, you start them on the stove at a low heat just to melt everything. And sometimes shea butter and cocoa butter, they take a little bit of time. So make sure that you start them before you do anything else. Well, aside from lining things. If you're by yourself, you're going to need to make sure everything is prepared before you even start. We had all 3 of us working at the same time, so we each had our own little tasks to do, but not everybody has that option. So you can see I turned on the heat. It's kind of a medium-low heat, and I'm just stirring it every once in a while. You don't have to stir it continuously.
At this point, we're using desalinated water, and we're going to mix that in with the lye. So I try to be fairly accurate with my measurements because I'm pedantic.
Well, you have to be for soap making. It's exact. It's an exact measurement type project.
At this point, I'm pouring out the lye. This is the part where you want to be a little bit careful because the lye is very caustic. So all the safety equipment is required. And I usually use a disposable plastic cup, which will either recycle or dispose in some other way. So the other thing is when you're mixing the lye with the water, you probably want to be outside for it or over a fan, just because it has a very strong odor when it gets mixed with some fumes. So yeah, outside is
Safety
the
equipment.
best.
Safety equipment is a must. Also,
As I'm outside with my socks.
any tools you use for soap making, they are only for soap making. So retire some of your older cooking and bakeware.
So you can see right here, we've gotten both the lye and oil down to the temperature in which we want.
120 degrees.
And then we've mixed them together. And Daniel, do you want to speak about this process?
So at this point, we're blending the oil and the lye mixture together with an emulsion blender. And we go until we get a very light trace, still very liquidy. Then we separated them, added the colors and the fragrances, and then we finish up getting to the consistency that we want for pouring.
So you'll have to remember fragrance oils and essential oils have to be put in right before you pour, and they will speed up trace. So you're pretty much pouring as soon as you add them, and you can see us pouring them here using our funnel. And you can see that sort of stick with the little plastic bit on the bottom. And that's because we're pouring over top of it to make a pattern.
So we watched another YouTube video and they had taken a strainer and a stick and pulled it through to create this pattern. So we did the same. We went to our local dollar store and found a strainer and did the kind of the same thing and alternating the colors. So when we pull through, it gives us this unique design. And that's what we kind of hope to do in future soaps.
So just remember that when you're pouring your soap, to leave about an inch room along the top. If you're using a strainer sort of stick situation like we are, you can fill them pretty full because when you pull everything out, your soap will stink the appropriate amount.
As you can see, we've already done 2 other ones. They're under the towel. And once we're done this, we're gonna cover the remaining 2 with the towel. The reason why we have the towel around it is so that it cools down slowly and it doesn't crack. So that's one of the reasons why we try to cover it. We had a towel, we also had a blanket over top of it so it wouldn't cool down and crack too quickly.
It actually feels incredibly hot after you put the towel over top. So you can see that we ended up with the 4 batches of soap, and Julie's marking everything so that we know which batch was which because they actually look incredibly similar once they were poured. So now we're taking the bottoms off so that we can...
So this is 24 hours later. Yeah, it didn't turn out to be super necessary, but I pounded it outside on the step just to loosen it up a little bit. And as you can see, they came right out, so the lining worked excellently.
Yeah, we had stuck them outside for a bit just to kind of freeze them because we watched on YouTube that might be a better option, just so it would come out easier. As you can see, we're now cutting it. We don't have our own cutter like a lot of YouTube channels, so we just used our regular cutter, and they're a bit uneven. You can see that Lauren sprayed some alcohol on it. Why is that, Lauren?
Oh, it's hydrogen peroxide, and it's to keep the soap ash down. So now our soaps just won't get ashy. The ash won't hurt you, but it's just for aesthetic purposes. And in about a week, we'll flip them and I'll spray the other side.
So how long does it take before you can actually use the soaps?
It will continue to harden over that time. I've seen some channels that say that if you do a water discount, it will be less time, but I have no idea how to do that. So maybe future me will figure out how to do that, and then my soap will take less time to cure. But for us, it'll be the 6 weeks just to make sure that it's safe to use. and then we'll go ahead and test it and see whether or not we liked it.
Daniel, do you want to explain why our 2 batches were slightly different in color?
So the first soap that you could see where there was a higher contrast between the black and the white, that was when we created a batch with a heavier trace. So that was the pudding-like consistency that you saw in the video. The second batch we did was a much lighter trace, so it was a more liquidy soap and it poured much faster, and then the colors mixed more, which is why you got the kind of more gray aesthetic.
So to get the different trace, you might not have heard that word before. It's when you mix for a longer or shorter amount of time with your hand blender or your stick blender. So if you blend for longer, it becomes thicker, and if you blend for a shorter amount of time, it's a thinner batch or batter, I guess. So it's kind of up to you which one you prefer. But if you go too long and it gets too thick, you just won't be able to pour it, and it'll become crumbly, and you won't be able to work with it.
So that's the end of our video and our commentary for today. If you liked our video, obviously like it and subscribe to our channel. We look forward to reading the comments about this video.
Please, we haven't named these 2 soaps yet, so leave a comment about what you would like us to name them. The other thing that we want to hear from you is what is our next soap? We haven't decided what to make yet, and I think it would be great if our viewers could tell us what to make next.
Awesome. Thanks. And yeah, I have nothing else.
Stay tuned for more soap making.